Alright, this lesson is about polynomial functions, and in this video I'm pretty much just going to be talking about some vocabulary terms and some classifications for things that will help us as we talk about polynomials. So first things first, this is the definition of what makes something a polynomial function. This crazy kind of pixelated thing up here. So basically what this definition is saying is a polynomial function is something that has variables in it to some degree, where n is a non-negative integer. So n can be 0, so it doesn't have, actually a polynomial function doesn't have to have variables. I could have a polynomial function that said f of x is 2. This is a polynomial function. I could have another function that said x equals x plus 2. Or I could have one that said 2x squared plus x minus 3, or x cubed, or 1/4 x to the 5th. All of these are polynomial functions. They so pretty much everything that we've used so far in algebra is a polynomial function, as long as it can be written in this form. Alright, so let's look at some definitions. So here's a polynomial function. I'm going to use it to talk about some common terms. The first one is called the leading coefficient. So the leading coefficient goes with the term of the highest degree. So we'll talk about degree a bit, but degree is the highest exponent that you'll see. So these are in order by degree from least to greatest. The degree is 3, 2, 1, 0. So the degree of this polynomial function is 3 because that's the highest exponent. Leading coefficient is the coefficient that goes with that term. The entire term, the coefficient and the variable raised to the power, is called the cubic term. It's called a cubic term because this is raised to a 3. The leading coefficient isn't always from a cubic, but in this case it is. This is called the quadratic term because it has the second power. This is the linear term because its power is raised to the 1. And this is the constant term, the last value. So not, like I said, not everything has a degree of 3. So here's some examples. Here's a polynomial, the number 6. Its degree is 0 because it doesn't have a variable, so I could write this as 6x to the 0, which is the same thing as 6 times 1, which is 6, because anything raised to the 0 is 1. So the degree of this term, the highest exponent for a variable, is 0. This is a constant term because the degree is 0. If something has a degree of 0, we call it constant. There's only one term. There's no plus anything else, so we call that a monomial. So we have two ways of classifying it. We classify it by degree and by number of terms. These are the names that we use for degrees, and these are the names that we use for the number of terms. So this one has a degree of 1, and there are 2 terms, so we call it a linear binomial. So this is linear binomial. This has 1 term, so it's a monomial. So you got monomial, binomial, trinomial, and then those are the only ones I want you to remember: monomial, binomial, trinomial. If it's got 4 or more, you can just call it a polynomial of 4 terms, or a polynomial of 6 terms, or however you want to say it. I want you to recognize 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 as constant, linear, quadratic, cubic, and then 4th and 5th is called quartic and quintic. So cubic, quartic, quintic, those are probably things you've never seen before. But this one, for example, is quintic because it's to the 5th degree. And then there are 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, so it's a quintic polynomial of 4 terms. So if I was to write something like this, minus x cubed plus 1, all right, this, even though it's not written in order, the x squared is before the x cubed, I could rewrite it like this. This would be called a cubic trinomial. The degree is 3, and there are 1, 2, 3 terms, so it's a cubic trinomial. So both of these are cubic trinomials. And let me do one more example. Let's say I had negative 2x squared plus x minus 3x plus 2x minus 1. What do you think this would be? Go ahead and pause the video and see if you can answer it. Okay, so the trick to this one is you need to add these together first. Rewrite these in standard form before you try and classify them, and that'll help you. It's negative 2x squared. This is x minus 3x is negative 2x, plus 2x is 0, so it goes away. So this is a quadratic. It's quadratic because you have 2, and then there are 2 terms, so it's binomial. So this is a quadratic binomial. You might have said it's a quadratic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, quadratic polynomial of 5 terms, but it's not, because once you simplify, these two things are the exact same thing, and this is a quadratic binomial. So this is a quadratic binomial. Simplify first and then classify. And that's it for this lesson. In class, we're going to talk about when do you use, so this is a scatter plot. What should I use to model this function? If this was an xy, so this is y and this is x, and I wanted to use something to kind of fit to that data, what should I use? And that's what we'll talk about in class.